Gracias, putas. Welcome to another riveting episode of the build of the Yost Autosport Endurance Racing M4. I'd like to kick things off with a little apology to our Hawaiian fans. Back in the first video, I opened it up with a little phrase that might have been a misuse of your beautiful language. What I meant to say was aloha, bitches. Now that we've cleared the air, let's get back to the business at hand, and that's this beautiful race car I'm standing in front of right now. First thing I'm going to talk about is the aerodynamics. Now, we haven't done a whole lot to the aerodynamics on this car just yet. Most of it comes pretty good from the factory as far as the underbody panels and everything go. Gets the underbody pretty flat underneath there. So for right now, until we have some more time to develop a full complete aero package, we're going to stick with that and a few basic add-ons that pretty much anybody can do with off-the-shelf parts. Some of those being PSM Dynamic front air dam splitter and PSM Dynamic side skirts. These just bolt right up to the existing bodywork. Now the only other thing we've done is we've added a rear wing. Now that rear wing we've chassis mounted with a custom brace that we had built for us by GenFab out here in Las Vegas, but that directs all of the downforce to the back of the chassis and pushes those rear tires into the ground the same way that this front splitter does to the front tires. And of course the side skirts on a car help block air from getting underneath the car, creating a low pressure zone that sucks the entire car down to the ground as well. All these things, they add a little bit of downforce. Now they do add a little bit of a drag as well, but the benefits of the downforce quickly outweigh the negative of the drag, especially when you're running a car with this much horsepower. Now, like I said, later in the season or next season, we'll get more into aerodynamic details and really trim this thing out and make it perfect for endurance racing, but that takes a lot of time, a lot of planning, and you have to figure out everything else first before you get to that stage. Now over here in the wheel and tire department, you're going to notice pretty much the exact same setup as we ran on our old E92 race car. We've got the same Achilles GS328 slicks that we use for dry conditions. We got the same Achilles 123S tires that we use for wet conditions. And we have the same BC forged wheels, same size, same offset, all four corners as the E92. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We even have the same exact mock shell wheel studs. Now on the E92, we had to modify our existing car to go from a 12 mil wheel stud to a 14 millimeter wheel stud. Fortunately for us on the M4, they come from the factory with the 14 millimeter wheel studs, so we're already right there. So everything you see in the wheel and department area, just as it was with the E92. Now we'll take this wheel off, get behind there, take a look at the brakes and the suspension, and we'll get into that a little bit more. All right, now behind that BC forged wheel and Achilles tire setup, you'll notice a lot of similarities in our braking and suspension package as well. Now up front, the same exact kit that we ran on our E92. AP Racing Pro 5000 endurance calipers from Essex Parts, the same AP Racing two-piece rotors from Essex Parts, the same Hawk Performance brake pads that are 1 inch thick, so we hopefully don't have to change them throughout the course of the entire 25 hours of Thunderhill. Now, all that stuff's the same up front, but what's going to be different is the adaptation of this kit for the rear of the car. Now on our old E92, we were running a different AP Racing kit on the rear of our car, and this year we're going to be in the same situation for a little bit longer until they finish developing this kit for the rear. Now that will allow us to run thicker brake pads, and again, with the hopes of not having to change them throughout the entire course of the race. That's going to save us a ton of time in pit lane versus our other competitors who usually do about 1 brake change during the course of that race in general. Now also behind here you have our BC Racing suspension. Same company, totally different coilover for this year. Last year we were running the triple adjustable ZR series coilovers and they were fantastic. This year they're guiding us to a DR coilover, which is a digressive valved coilover. Now what that's going to do, yes, it gives us less knobs to turn, less things to play with, but it gets us to where we were at with the ZRs right from the factory. We don't have to change that much. The way this shock acts as you go around the racetrack is fantastic.
So
where the digressive valving comes into play versus the linear valving is when you are on the track and you're hitting high-speed bumps and things like that. So the linear valving moves up and down in the same rate, while a digressive valving is going to be stiffer on the low-speed stuff, so the way the car brakes, the way the car squats under acceleration, driver feel, things like that. Now on the digressive setup, when you hit something like a curb, it blows off that energy and makes the car a lot more stable over bumps and a lot more easy to control, a lot less likely to get upset by undulating terrain, things like that. So that results in a much easier to drive car, a much smoother, predictable handling car when you're out there on a bumpy racetrack.
So one of the things that's unique to our race car and was very important to us initially was preserving as much of the stock wiring harness as we could. So we went through, we removed as many wires as we could, as many of the modules as we could in order to get the car to perform a basic function without carrying anything extra in the vehicle. In doing that, we found that there's a lot of lines of communication, such as the iDrive system in this car. It's vital to this car. It gives you a lot of information that the normal dash console itself does not give you. So when we went through and we removed that module, it caused a lot of communication issues. So working through that with a lot of different partners to reconnect those lines of communication to get this car to perform the basic functions that we need. We've also added a Motec C125 dash to run in conjunction with our stock dash unit to give us a little bit more information as to what the car is doing. Since we lost the iDrive system, it's important that we're able to get some of that back. So one of my favorite features on the vehicle is the steering wheel that we've chosen. With the flat bottom on it, makes it easy for drivers to get in and out quickly. It also has pre-cutouts for us to add all the buttons and switches that we need for endurance racing. We have switches on there that control the Motec dash, we have communication, we have a dimmer, we have a flash button for our lights. And then we've also retrofitted the stock paddles to the steering wheel. That way, if we ever have an issue or a problem, it's very easy for us to get a hold of those paddles versus an aftermarket paddle. We've also added in a auxiliary wiring kit or harness that allows us to run all of our auxiliary coolers, lighting, everything we need to help the car perform its functions, because we've removed a lot of those stock functions. So we've added that back in. It's easier for us to control, it's easier for us to turn on and off, and it allows us the flexibility to add items as we need it. One of the most crucial things in endurance racing is your fuel delivery system. We've teamed up again with Aeromotive, and we brought on a new partner this year, Fuel Safe, which stepped up. They built us a custom saddle tank fuel cell, which you guys saw in a previous episode, as to how we made that originally to get it to fit in the stock location. They were able to get us 36.8 gallons out of this particular fuel cell, which is a huge advantage for us because the more fuel we carry, less stops we have to make. We are delivering the system through a 3-inch dry brake on both sides, which allows us access to any track we go to. We do not have to change the way that we deliver the fuel. We can deliver it from either side. Goes into the tank, into an Aeromotive dual phantom system that we've been running since the previous car. It's a great system. It's a redundant system. There's multiple pumps in there that are just on the flip of a switch if for some reason we have an issue with one. Goes through an Aeromotive pressure regulator, through a fuel cooler, up to the engine, and it returns all the way back to the fuel cell. This is one of the most sophisticated fuel systems that we've ever been a part of. So far, we've had pretty good success with it. We're working out a few little bugs on it to make sure that we're able to get all of the fuel out of the cell. It's absolutely crucial that when we're out there, we can consume all the fuel that we have on board before we come in for a pit stop. So we just finished up our first week of testing with our new M4. Overall, I have to say it's been a complete success for the build. We ended up putting this car together in a rush in about 2 weeks to completely finish the build and get on to testing and start working on the development of some of the parts that are on this vehicle. We learned a lot about the car. There's some electronic issues that we worked through over the 4 days, some recalibration of some items in the vehicle. Since we removed a lot of the stock electronics, it needs those type of calibrations in order for it to work properly. Over the 4 days, got a lot of lap times, got the car up to speed, got it handling properly. Overall, I'd say it's a success, and we can call it a race car. You're gonna regret that.
Here's these sick-ass black anodized exhaust tips that are color change, yo. Dual stage anodizing. Mind blowing.